Hello.
Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Hello, this is Angela. Here's Dr. Ray and Jean for the live connections call about jealousy.
Hey, Ange, how are you doing? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday Night Connections with Dr. Ray and Jean.
This is a topic by request, and we have had multiple requests for this topic.
So if you are the one requested, please let us know. But several people have requested this topic on jealousy. And we actually had some requests through our podcast, and then also several requests through email and also through this webinar that we do every Tuesday night. So we got the background here lit up in green. So it's the big green monster, right? Which is what they call jealousy, right? So jealousy is a lot of people, when they're asking about jealousy, they are talking about how can I get rid of it, right? Like I feel jealous about my partner doing something that I'm not happy with, and I'd like to get rid of that jealousy and not feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
No.
Jealousy is a natural emotion, and it exists in the part of our brain that we share with dogs. And they've done some studies, which are pretty cool, where they took a toddler and a caretaker, and they had the parent talk on the phone. The kid didn't care. The parent was playing with other things in the room. The kid didn't care. And then the parent picked up a child. It was actually a fake child, like a doll, but really real looking. And the child came over and started first like trying to get the parent's attention. Then it started crying and screaming and started pulling at the baby to try to get the parent to let it go. And then they did the exact same experiment with a dog, and the exact same thing happened. When the dog stuffed animal that was given so much attention to the owner, the dog was trying to wrestle it away, and it started barking and whining and crying. And jealousy is a natural emotion that we have that is directly related to love and bonding.
Yeah.
Right.
And it utilizes one of the hormones called oxytocin. And oxytocin is a bonding hormone. It is produced when a mother is feeding her child. It also is produced during intercourse. And so that bonding hormone connects us to the people that we love. You know, when we connect with them, we want to stay with them, and we want to nurture and deepen that connection. And so oxytocin is a very, very important part of that. Oxytocin is also an important part of jealousy as well. In fact, if we have too much oxytocin, we can have that possessive type of jealousy. You know, there was a study done in Rutgers, and they found that too much of oxytocin does create that kind of a phenomenon. Oddly enough, MDMA, you know, the drug that people use to kind of get high and have, you know, that really awesome experience, it actually, what it does is it overloads the system of oxytocin. So it kind of removes you from reality, and, you know, it really kind of makes you do some really irrational types of behaviors.
So if you think about early childhood development and the levels of oxytocin that might or might not be there in that bonding process, and this is why it's so important. And it isn't just feeding or intercourse, it is the eye gazing, the touching, the all that direct communication with another person that boosts our oxytocin level. And so if you didn't get a lot of that as a child, it can make you feel really unsettled, anxious, detached, and you might do a lot of behaviors that try to get that need met, whether that is, being coyish, later becomes seduction, which they have seen in infants as young as 2 months old, or tantrums, which has been seen in women of all ages. No. I would say I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. And there's a reason for that. And there's and men. That's not fair to say.
Men do have temper tantrums too.
Yeah.
Time.
And there's a reason for that, and there's a natural process that happens. And so, over time, if a person develops the skill, right? The skill or adaptability
yeah.
of bonding, which means they are falling in love and they are committing and they are having appropriate pair bonding, they would be superior in the competitive race over people that just go and sow their wild oats, so to speak.
So, just to kind of dial it back a little bit, just to be clear, you are supposed to have jealousy. All of us.
To a certain degree.
To a certain degree. It is a natural emotion that we emit and we feel when we are connected and bonded to our partner. And the whole point of having jealousy is to propagate the species, is to continue on, and make sure that our progeny survive. I mean, that's the whole purpose of jealousy.
And even more specific, your genetics.
Correct.
Not just the species.
Right. So if you're feeling jealous in your relationship, it's actually a signal. It's letting you know that something actually is wrong. Something is going on in the relationship, that there's a problem. And, the thing is that people say, there's a lot we did a podcast Monday.
Yep.
Yesterday, actually released yesterday. And it was about having opposite gender friends. And, it's a very controversial topic because a lot of people think that, I can have, for example, for myself, I can have friends that are female that I talk to and that I hang out with and that I, go out to lunch with or whatever. And that's not a belief that I have. It's not a belief that Jean has, because it always complicates things in the relationship. And, to kind of jump on top of, on that topic, jealousy, it naturally is going to come up when that occurs. And that is something that should happen because, if I were spending time and energy away from my relationship with another woman, regardless of whether it's platonic or not, I am taking away resources, which is time and energy from our relationship. And that is something that, that jealousy comes up because it is an appropriate response.
So if you think about, the child and the dog, there is a period of adjustment when another child is born where the child that's already part of the family system goes through an adjustment, and they may never adjust. They may adjust very well, but there has to be something that happens within the system where they know they're valued and secure spot within the system. And same with a dog, if you're adding a dog or another child into a situation where there's already a dog. And the interesting thing that happens when people are doing that, the energy gets dispersed. It has to. One parent or two parents can't give the same amount of time, love, affection, and attention to two children as they can to one, or two dogs as they can to one. And so all sorts of interesting things happen in order to make family systems work. And I think that's what we're seeing in the polyamorous community, that there is that attempt to make a space for other people. And it's really difficult. And that's why people that say they're polyamorous say they do a lot of talking, and they do so much talking about this topic and how they fit in and how secure they feel in the relationship, that I don't think they, at least in the people we've interviewed, they don't really get to those higher relationship type of lessons because they're managing the ones just at the bonding level?
Yeah, couples and people that we have talked to that do have polyamorous or non-monogamous relationships, they do experience jealousy naturally, and that is something that they have to talk about all the time. And one of the things they do is they try to imagine and the happiness of the person that they're jealous about, right? And that's what they try to do in order to overcome that feeling of jealousy. But it is still a natural thing that occurs, is something that they still experience, no matter how many relationships that they're in. And as a relationship develops, as you continue to get deeper in your relationship and bond, and grow that connection, you are going to feel those feelings of jealousy more often, because you have this now investment in the relationship, and you don't want that relationship or that investment to go away, right? And we're not talking about, this excessive possessiveness here, when it becomes out of balance and, almost like paranoia, to that extent. That's not the kind of jealousy we're talking about. What we're talking about here is actually an appropriate, normal amount of that feeling that is letting you know that the resources within the relationship are now starting to be dispersed in other areas. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, you are jealous because there's another person that's taking away your partner's time and energy. It could be, a friend of his, a male friend of his that is taking away time from the relationship. It could be work, that he's spending a lot of time at work. And because of that, it is now taking away that time and energy from the relationship that you would naturally feel jealous about.
It could be a screen.
Sure. It could be a screen.
So we talk about what's the first thing you touch in the morning. And
Right.
if your screen's getting more, of that time and attention of your good stuff, that can also put some strain on that. So jealousy is it's like a little alarm saying, hey, I think we're out of whack a little bit. And if you're getting extreme jealousy, either there is something inside of you that is a wound that's coming up for healing, because in early childhood, there was maybe an event, maybe a divorce or a loss of someone, or a move to a different home, or an addition of another child, or a loss in the family. All sorts of things can play on that bond that would be coming up for healing as a couple gets closer and closer together. And the other thing that can compete with that is that there actually is a problem, and your partner is not appropriately responding to the concerns that you have about feeling a disconnect in the relationship. And I think it's important to talk about jealousy versus envy.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So first off, does anybody out there know the difference between jealousy and envy? If you do, just kind of type it in the chat there, whether you're on YouTube now or whether you're on Facebook. Just let's see if anybody really knows the difference. And don't cheat. Don't go Google it or anything.
So I think
we'll just jump right in.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, go ahead.
So jealousy is when you have something, you have that bond, and that bond is considered a pair bond or a love bond, parent-child bond. It is directly related to loving someone. If you don't feel jealous, you don't have a love bond. That's the extreme other end of it. And so jealousy says that bond is being threatened. There's something threatening and trying to erode or take away that bond. And what envy is envy says, I want what someone else has. And so you can be envious of someone's car or someone's relationship or someone's house or anything, And envy says, and the reason envy is a deadly sin is because it says that there's a lack, that if I have a great relationship, you don't get to have one. As opposed to, I have a great relationship and you get to have a great relationship. It's like Oprah, and you get a car and you get a house and you get a great relationship. So envy, when we're stuck there, we can't see the potential in our own lives. And we're just looking out there and saying, well, everyone else has it. And so there's no more left for me. And that's envy. And envy is actually a very unhealthy emotion that we have, and it's a dysfunctional emotion, as opposed to jealousy, which is very functional, that says
Can be.
right.
Can be functional.
That healthy jealousy is something that says there's someone competing for something that keeps my genetic material safe and able to expand in the world. And when we talk about that, there's a difference between the way men experience jealousy and the way women experience jealousy.
Yeah, actually, researchers have identified two different types of jealousy that we experience. And specifically for men experience sexual jealousy, and women experience emotional jealousy. And so if you think about, we're kind of we're just going back to, the origin of jealousy and how it kind of maintains this genetic constancy, right? So if you think about, sexual jealousy within men have more of a problem with women, with their woman having sex with someone else, because ultimately a man doesn't know whether his child is really his. And so if a woman is to have, sex with someone else, it is going to minimize his ability to procreate, and that his genes are going to move on in the world. Whereas women having emotional jealousy, they have to have a partner that is committed to raising the children, committed to taking care of the children, being able to provide and protect them. And so if he is to have some type of an emotional connection with another woman, that would be a huge risk, right? And it would jeopardize the connection that they already have and her ability to be able to make sure that the children live on and pass on that genetic code, right?
Yeah, I just thought of something interesting. It's sort of related, but sort of not. Those are the opposite reasons men and women have affairs. Women tend to have emotional affairs that end their current relationship, and men tend to have sexual affairs, physical affairs, that they don't want their relationship actually to end. So that's interesting that the jealousy goes in the opposite direction. And, as we were doing this research, they also said that there is not a natural pain associated with if a woman gets pregnant by another man and her partner doesn't know, and he raises that child and never knows that that's not his genetic material, he never has a feeling about that. He never will know. And it just means that your ancestors are not your ancestors, and that he hasn't actually passed on his genetic material, but he wouldn't feel anything about it if he didn't know about it.
Right, right. And so, Ange, I was wondering if you've ever run into clients who have expressed jealousy, and in what kinds of situations did they express that or have that or experience it?
Yes, I think jealousy comes up a lot. One thing I was thinking of when you two were talking about the difference between jealousy and envy is that when we get to envy, if I'm with a client who is explaining that they're basically envious and not just jealous, I say, you want to be careful of envy, because I think envy starts to erode. Like, it could really eat at you, because it's more of this like permanent sweeping statement, this high bar you're holding for yourself, this idea that you can't have something that someone else has, right? So jealousy, I don't know, it comes up all the time, right? And if I'm explaining it to someone, jealousy, we see it in kids all the time, right? You two were mentioning about the new baby in the house will cause the toddler to be jealous. But one of the questions that have come up recently is, do you think there's that similar kind of jealousy when adults are entering into families, such as, let's say, someone entering into a family as a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or someone getting engaged and now through marriage they're going to be part of a family?
I would imagine that absolutely that would happen. We were, if people have been talking to us, they know that we were recently binge watching a pretty old show called Downton Abbey. And in Downton Abbey, I mean, we're talking about in the 1800s here, in England. 1900s, sorry, 1900s in England. And, there were three sisters, and they go through the process of these sisters getting married, being courted by men, and, now having these brother-in-laws that are coming into the family. And they did go through these periods of jealousy, jealousy towards, their sibling having something more than them, or, getting married sooner, or having a baby sooner. And all of those things, they really, what they reflect is, I am not, moving forward. I am not, producing a child and, and moving forward with my genetic material, as Jean said, right? And that is innate in all of us. It is something that comes out of our brain, just because of the bonding hormones. And we don't really know what to do with it. That's why they call it the green monster,
Well, I would say envy's the green monster.
Well, envy is the green monster. Well, I put all this green up for nothing then.
Well, maybe jealousy is too, but I think we're making a distinction. So that's interesting.
Right. There we go.
Yeah.
So that's envy. We're talking about jealousy here. Right.
And again, I think that is part of that human need we have for significance, and where do we fit in and bring value to a system. So if you're an in-law, you have to figure that out. I married into a family that I only have sister-in-laws, raise the only boy in the family. So I don't have the opposite where there's another sister-in-law in that family.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say those are interesting dynamics. And I would say it happens anytime a system has to grow, maybe even at work. And if someone is really insecurity plays a big role in jealousy, because jealousy is on a continuum. It's really difficult to know, where is it healthy and where does it get to be an issue that is a wound inside of a person, an individual person. And this is the reason it's such a big topic, is because no matter what, when we feel jealousy, we commingle that feeling with shame, that we instantly go, what is wrong with me? I shouldn't feel this way, which isn't true. And you can't not feel that way. So you will feel that way, whether you want to or not, or should or not. And how do you know when it's a healthy, appropriate jealousy that makes you protect? And for women, the reason it's an emotional jealousy is because you have a bond with your child. And the jealousy is, hey, make sure our child is taken care of. And by proxy, I'm the mom of the child, and all of that works together in our family unit. But that place where, what if that person is doing that, and that mother she can't really feel it? Maybe she has some trauma or some wounds that she hasn't dealt with or worked through. And some parents actually are jealous of their children and can't add their children into the mix.
Yeah, that's very true. And, I was just going to say that, if like your partner is spending time with someone else, and you start to feel that jealousy, you have to kind of check in with yourself. Is this coming from my own insecurity? Because, because that interaction that's happening is actually appropriate, right? Maybe they're a friend and they're actually having an appropriate interaction, and the insecurity is coming up from within, and that's what's feeding the jealousy, versus your partner's actually doing something that is harming the relationship, right? And taking actual resources and away from the
difficult thing with that is, the only way to figure it out is by actually having a conversation. And if you feel enough shame around it, you're not going to talk about it. And I would say the error is more on the other side. The error is more on the side where I think I'm too sensitive or too insecure and I don't want to talk about it, even though I have a feeling like something's off, rather than nothing's really happening and I'm just having a feeling.
Right.
You know?
Right. So they err more on keeping it to themselves and, blaming themselves for having these feelings that are
Right.
probably appropriate, right? But definitely natural, right? Ange, was wondering if you had an idea of the differences between envy and jealousy.
Oh yeah. Well, you two already went through it, right? About the difference between jealousy and envy. Yeah. That's what I was thinking, and I learned a lot from you too. So that's what I was thinking. Um, there's the show Little Big Lies. I think I got that right. And in one of the first season, in one of the episodes, I think there's a great scene that sort of expresses envy. The woman is saying something along the lines of, I see you and how you're all put together with your outfits and your hair, and I see your neighbors and how they're all put together, and you all look so great, and I feel like because I'm not that, I can never be that, right?
Right.
So I was thinking, like, wow, that scene, that's envy right there. It's this sort of sweeping statement. Someone she sounds jealous of, but she's taking it one step further, saying, I can never be that. Sort of, I can never have that.
Yeah, and that's where that shame comes in. And it's really interesting because that example particularly, is that the single mom that says that she can never have that?
Yeah, the young
And
one,
the
yeah.
father. And I think this goes to our whole dilemma with social media and what we are privileged to in other people's lives isn't the real stuff. We're privileged to, I mean, you guys see right now we have this lovely space we're in, but if we turn the camera around, we're actually in a room with a bunch of electronics and stuff, and maybe the dishes aren't done, whatever.
That's upstairs.
But we're not, recording in front of that. And so we see these little glimpses and we think, I remember this one example, we had just moved into this house that we're in. Our son was in 6th grade and he invited a boy over, a friend, to, it's just after school. And I was in the middle of baking bread. Now, maybe in my life, I've baked bread a few times, but this kid walks into our house and he sees this mom baking bread, and that's his only experience of me ever in his life. And so I'm sure he's like, wow, there's a house and they have fresh bread all the time. And that's what we forget. And even in that example you were using, Angie, it's like, we know, because if you're watching the show, their lives are a mess. Even if they look all put together and they're showing up and everything, there's a lot of anxiety that goes into that. And it's not the truth or the reality. And when we have real friends and you really go into their house and you really see how someone lives and how they are, we're much more normal. It doesn't feel so bad.
Well, I mean, I think we're kind of talking about envy now, because envy is just all over social media, right? You have these picture perfect people wherever you go on social media, and people have this envy that I want that, or I should be like that. I was telling a client just the other day that sometimes I go into we're invited to a party or someone's house, and we go there and their house is just perfect, right? I mean, it could be ready to show for a realtor. And, we know, because maybe we know about the couple's background, that their life is not perfect. It's far from it. And so what happens is that, when your life is not perfect, it's not the way you want it to be, and you feel shame about it, what happens is we try to manage everything else outside of it. If I can make this look perfect, if I can do this perfect, then it's going to make me feel a little bit less shame, right? But the fact of the matter is, life is not perfect. life is supposed to be chaotic, and sometimes more chaotic than others, but it is supposed to be that way. And when we start envying other people, or because we think that they're perfect, then we add more shame to ourselves, right? And jealousy plays another role in that as well.
Mm-hmm. And the world, the opposing forces of the world, not the real people who care for you and care about you and know you, but those outside things like marketing and people you see across a screen and social media, they want you to feel shame. They want you to feel a drive to buy something. And if you feel bad about yourself, you're going to do something that makes you go against your integrity or fill some hole up that you feel inside of yourself. And so we get a lot of those kind of messages really for that reason, because if you feel good about yourself and don't need anything, you're not going to buy anything.
Here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
How long should a normal level of jealousy last?
That's kind of a complicated question to answer, because I'm just thinking, if a situation is going on for a long time, let's say someone is giving more and more of their resources to someone else, meaning time and energy, right? Then over a long period of time, that jealousy is going to continue over that long period of time, right? And so it's not something you can just kind of wish away in that instance. But if it's something that maybe you as a couple have resolved and it is now behind you, and that feeling of jealousy continues to linger on and on and on, then that's something to really take a look at internally, I would think.
And, if we go back to this idea that jealousy is an alarm and it's saying that there's a threat to our bond, our relationship, then that means it's a relationship issue, which means there's 3 parts to that healing. Is this person doing what they need to be doing? Is this person doing what they need to be doing? And in that they need to be doing is also the healing and the soul searching and their own working on their self-esteem and that. And is the relationship supporting each other in a way that is allowing that to either correct the imbalance or to heal in the individual? And, so I would say one thing is that the time frame isn't there, but if there's not a progression, and if you're in a relationship where you feel out of that and you've done your work and you're pretty sure, you're constantly reaching towards your partner and they're not responding, or you're waiting around for them and they're not offering any solutions to do something to strengthen the bond, then you really need to decide inside yourself, is this relationship appropriate? Mm-hmm. And so it's tricky because, if we think about the bell-shaped curve or a continuum, it's all of those things. It can be a wound and the other person not engaging appropriately in the relationship, and the couple not knowing how to move forward, and that maybe it's a signal the relationship isn't being equally invested in and might not be appropriate and should end, or it's going to correct and probably level up.
Which, we've always said that there's so much complexity in long-term relationships, and that complexity changes over time as couples go through different developmental stages. In our conversations with people who are non-monogamous or are in polyamorous relationships, that complexity, and I think in the last interview that we had with someone, which we haven't aired yet, but the word that they used was magnify, right? And that is that these issues of jealousy and, is my time and resources, is it being honored in the relationship? Those issues and those problems are magnified. And so you can see the complexity magnified even more. I don't know. It's hard enough being in a relationship, with just one person. I think having a relationship with more than one is a I don't know. I'd have to be a monk, I think.
Yeah, and I think that as the longer a relationship goes on and the more work that has been done and the more of those rough edges or coming together happens, jealousy softens, but when the bond strengthens, jealousy softens. When the bond softens, jealousy enhances. And so there's always this dance that's happening. And I think that's why you see when couples get to a certain space, so you heard us talk about the 20-year, 25-year mark, there's something that happens then if they've done the work where the things that used to matter don't matter so much anymore. And the things that really matter are so important and leave both people feeling such a sense of safety and connection and peace and bonding in the world that it's just not worth trading it out for something that is more mundane.
Superficial or something. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, the couple that have done their reps, they know that each person is honoring the relationship. They have built trust and they know that, they don't have to worry about the other person spending their time and energy and resources elsewhere.
And they've grown enough in themselves that if their person did do that, they know they'd be okay. And they no longer sit and monitor that because they're like, you know what, if we're in this stage of the game and that's important to you, then
I'll
probably walk away.
What I was going to say also is that, and if it started to happen, right, then they have built in, ways of communicating, to stop it right when it starts and to be able to, kind of put in place ways of coming back together and reconnecting. And that's the really important part of it, in that long-term relationship is doing that work to get to that place where you are able to connect. And as you do this dance and moving through life, where things are sometimes you separate, sometimes you come back together, that when you start to separate for whatever reason, stressors or work or other things in life, that you do the work to come back together and you both are able to recognize, hey, I think we're not really spending much time here together and we really need to come back and reconnect.
And on your podcast, as you mentioned, the one that was released yesterday, when you were talking about the possible challenges in having friends of the opposite gender, right? And how it would impact your your romantic partnership or your marriage. What do you think about one partner feeling jealousy about their other partner talking with or going out with friends of the same gender? So the idea of a man feeling a little jealousy about his wife going out with her girlfriends or vice versa.
So, it's along the same lines. If jealousy says there's a threat to the relationship, and especially the problem of sharing relationship information and about your partner to a third party, whatever gender they may be, there's that feeling of inappropriateness. And so at the end of that episode, we kind of talked about if your partner was in the room listening to you talk to another person and you didn't feel okay and you didn't want your partner to know what you were saying, it's probably inappropriate, right? So, there's the added danger of someone that's a potential mate being an opposite gender is when they are giving that energy to someone else in a platonic way. And then if the primary relationship has a problem, it's easy to flip that and say, do the work. If it's a girlfriend, or even, we see a lot of mothers that people are going to their mothers instead of their partners with their relationship stuff. And it creates a dysfunction within growth within the relationship. And again, you heard us talk about, we're not talking about everybody in every relationship. We're really talking about relationships that really want that, the golden, whatever it is, the golden
ticket, the
golden
goose.
The golden relationship ticket. Well, I was going to say, in those studies with children, with mothers that are giving attention, to a fake baby, and the studies that were done with dogs where the owners are giving attention to a fake dog. In both cases, the dogs and the children, they exhibited distress because the mother or the owner was showing more attention and affection to something else. So they're giving of their resources and they're bonding with something else other than them. And because of that, the bond is being threatened. And that's where natural jealousy is going to come up. So it doesn't really matter whether it is a friend, it's a platonic friend, or whether it's actual, there's some sexual connection. It is this rupture of the bond that is already there. And now that threat is viable, right? And so the person is having that feeling for a reason.
Yeah, I think there's the concept of inclusion and exclusion. And we all feel that. And that can be, you belong to a neighborhood and there's a party and you don't get invited and the other neighbors do and you and your partner don't, or your family, or, kids at school and one kid gets left out or something. And you think about that from a survival perspective. If you lived in a tribe and the whole tribe went and had dinner and didn't feed you, you're going to die, and that's what comes up. That's why it's at such a primal level of terror and a threat to your person and your personal survival when you're excluded. And jealousy has that component to it where you used to belong and were being nurtured and fed and taken care of, and you knew that person had your back, and then they don't when they're going outside of that. And so it has to do with that kind of stuff. And I think that's where maybe in polyamorous relationships, they work hard to make sure everyone feels that inclusiveness, because that's the thing that gets that. And it's funny, whenever we talk to polyamorous couples, they have it somewhere else. If you listen to Joel and would she go by Pixie or Christina now?
I think Christina.
Joel and Christina's podcast, they had a sweatshirt. The sweatshirt's ours and nobody can wear the sweatshirt but us. You can have sex with another person, but you can't wear the sweatshirt. So they find other ways to have that little tie, that little bond, that little significance within those dynamics of a triad or more people. So it doesn't go away. It's just managed differently.
So are we
ready to meditate?
Ready to meditate?
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome.
And, just one more thing I wanted to say is that early in a relationship, we really talk about, what can I get? How much attention am I getting? What can I get? How much
affection can I get? Right.
How, are they spending money on me? Am I getting gifts? Or do I get time? Do I get attention? And later on, when, life settles down a little bit, it's more about, what can I give? And when you're in the place of what can I give, you really understand your own value. Mm-hmm. So when you're in what can I get, you think your value is determined by what you're receiving. And when you're in this other place, your value is more determined by what you have to offer. And if you have something to offer and the person you're giving it to doesn't value it, it's easier to say, you know what, this is not acceptable. And to kind of walk away from, I would say. If
your focus is on getting, mm-hmm. then what usually happens is a scorecard. You start taking score as to what your partner is giving you and what they're getting from you. And, we've said in a past podcast that you only keep score with an opponent and you don't keep scores with a teammate.
Right.
And so if the focus is on giving to your partner's focus is giving to you, then that's where you're nurturing that bond. And then you are focusing on each other and not focusing on giving that energy and giving that bond elsewhere.
And so before we meditate and close our eyes, I just want you to, with your left hand, have it open. And you can have it open in a comfortable place. You can set it on your lap and have it open. And with your right hand, face it out. So you're doing this, right? And now you can kind of get comfortable and gently close your eyes and focus on your breath. And imagine you can breathe in through your left hand. The left hand is the feminine side of the body. It is receptive. It is the part of us that's willing to receive. And as you exhale, imagine that you're exhaling out of your right hand. And that is the part of us that is willing to give, that projects. And just feel that energy for a moment of breathing in through the left, and breathing out through the right. And as you continue to breathe, I want you to focus on your right hand. And I want you to think about, what are your gifts? What do you have to offer? What are you willing to give to your life, to your relationships, and even to yourself? And spend a moment to think about your gifts, your value, what you have to offer. And silently repeat to yourself, I am willing to give. I am willing to give. I am willing to give. And just like it would be impossible to sustain life if all we did was exhale, focus now on your left hand. Feel the vulnerability and receptivity. In your right hand, where you're willing to give, you have full control. In your left hand, where you receive, you're at the mercy of others. And first and foremost, at the mercy of giving to yourself. So in perfect balance, take a moment as you focus on your left hand and think about what you're willing to receive. Do you allow compliments in? Do you allow gifts? Where do you block receiving in your life? And where can you open up and say thank you instead of you shouldn't have? And silently say to yourself, I am willing to receive. I am willing to receive. I am willing to receive. And just slowly and gently bring your hands parallel, palms facing each other and a few inches apart. And feel the energy coming in through your left hand, coming into your heart, moving down your right arm and out your right hand. and feel the completed circuit of receiving and giving. Breathing in and breathing out. Your wholeness and your completeness. And imagine holding in that space the people in your life that you love. Imagine that you're able to give to them and receive from them, keeping perfect balance and perfect harmony, just like breathing in and breathing out. And feel the expansiveness anytime we include others in our complete process of giving and receiving. And if you notice an imbalance in your life and in your relationships, know that that imbalance begins within yourself. And allow yourself to think about your willingness to give and your willingness to receive. And if one of them is stronger than the other, and what you would do to correct that imbalance. In the same way that we just can't breathe in and sustain our life, and we just can't breathe out. And just take a moment to find that perfect balance again. Breathing out through your right hand, inhaling through your left, up your left arm, into your heart, down your right arm, and able to give again. In perfect balance of receiving and giving. Inhaling and exhaling. And bring your hands together and hold them at your heart center. And bow your head and thank yourself for giving yourself time today to work on yourself, your relationship, and your future relationships. And when it feels natural and normal, gently lower your hands and open your eyes. Thank you for letting us give to you today.
Yes, and thank you for all of those who, tune in, every week. It's really awesome to get that support and everything. Obviously what we do here, it comes from the bottom of our heart. It is our life's work. And, we're, as we say, we can't preach it if we don't live it. So we're always working on our relationship as well. So thank you very much. And until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.